Having looked at the means, let us then turn to opportunity and see if Gilda had the opportunity to commit these crimes. Now, certainly on Halloween, her whereabouts at the time of Johnny Vidi's murder are undisclosed, so it is possible that she did in fact have the opportunity to kill him. But not so on Thanksgiving and Christmas. On Thanksgiving Day, Gilda Dent is in the hospital with a head injury, clearly depicted in the story as being hooked up to IVs and monitors with her husband a mere couple of feet from her side. Even if she were strong enough to, she could not have left these surroundings to go commit 5 murders without the hospital staff or her husband noticing that she was gone. On Christmas, Gilda is in a wheelchair, barely able to stand on her own. Again, it is highly unlikely that she had an opportunity to leave her husband, find Milos, and kill him in such a state. I've left her possible motive in these crimes for my final point because it is the weakest aspect of the argument for Gilda being behind the murders, and thus the easiest to refute. Supposedly, Gilda commits these murders because her husband was overworked and not spending enough time with her. These murders were her attempt to create less work for him so they could be together more. How anyone could consider that killing mobsters would get the district attorney home earlier in the evening is beyond me. So her motive is flimsy, her means unlikely, her opportunities non-existent. These are but a few glaring examples that prove that Gilda was not involved in the holiday killings. However, if Alberto was holiday the whole time, everything fits. As the son of the Roman, Alberto could easily gain access to Johnny Vito, the Irish gang, and Milos. He knew them, some were even family members. Gaining access to their homes and hideouts would not be difficult, and it would be easy for him to know when Milos was outside of the penthouse since Alberto lived there. Alberto had access to weapons, as is illustrated by the gunsmith. Like Gilda, Alberto might not have known how to kill someone, but he could easily ask any number of family members who are trained assassins to teach him how to shoot, much like Michael Corleone does in the gangster epic The Godfather, which is a clear inspiration of Batman the Long Halloween. If Alberto were committing the holiday killings all by himself from the beginning, then he would know that faking his death on New Year's Eve would work, and that there wouldn't be a double killing. It is in fact the only scenario in which Alberto faking his death makes sense, because his being holiday is the only way that he could be certain that his survival would not be found out. And of course, he later kills the coroner who covered that fact up, that he was not in fact dead. Finally, there's the motive in the killings. Alberto's motive in all of the latter killings is clear. The murders on Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Father's Day, Labor Day, are all members of the Moroni crime family, the Falcone's chief rivals in the battle for control of Gotham City's underworld. As previously stated, the earlier murders were committed to cover up the fact that Alberto was alive and secretly holiday. These murders clearly all benefit either Alberto directly or his entire family. Some readers try to poke holes in the Alberto theory with talk of the supposed change in motive before and after Alberto's death. Before New Year's Eve, all of Holiday's victims were members of the Falcone crime family, and these readers believe it's not logical for Alberto to take out members of his own family. After New Year's, all the victims are Maronis, and this switch, some point out, is evidence in the support of these switching killers. However, Alberto did have a potential motive for each of the early murders, despite the fact that they were members of his family, both in name and blood. First, there is Johnny Vidi, who is stated in his introduction on the left, has recently tried to have the Roman killed by slipping a knife between his ribs, a direct recall to Batman Year One. This act of betrayal would be unforgivable to a crime family like the Falcones, so he is repaid for his attempt to have a knife slip between the Roman's ribs with 2 bullets to the head. Sure, they throw him a nice big wedding in between, but that's just to throw the scent off. Next, we have the Irish gang on Thanksgiving, who could be marked for death by Alberto for 2 reasons. One, they had been hired to put out a hit on Harvey Dent, and it turned out that Dent was still alive. They failed to kill the district attorney. And in the mafia, failure is not taken lightly. 2, after their failure to fulfill a hit, they had all been easily apprehended by the police. And despite the fact that the Irish gang had been given the opportunity to rat the Roman out and hadn't, there was always the chance they could change their minds. This, in fact, happens in Batman Year One, that Jefferson Skeever's is eventually convinced by Batman to turn state's evidence. And so, having them around is a liability. Really not hard to see a motive here. If a group of people have evidence that a mob family is involved in a killing, and those people turn up dead, a member of the mob family is a pretty likely suspect. Finally, there's Milos, whose murder is a little bit difficult to justify, but not impossible. Milos, it was stated in the text, was the Roman's personal bodyguard and most trusted friend. However, he too had failed in his duties of late. On the day of Johnny Beatty's wedding, on the left, both Batman and Catwoman break into the Falcone home and elude capture, a fact that the Roman did not take lightly. He's definitely upset. Just moments before Milos' death as well, the Joker broke into the Roman's penthouse and easily bested Milos. It seems then that Milos was not the most effective bodyguard around, and perhaps had to pay for his failures with his life.